Welcome to the Health Trip Podcast. My name is Jill Foose. I'm a functional medicine and integrative nutrition health coach. I created this podcast to bring you along as we travel down intriguing, science-packed roads, debunking old medical paradigms and perusing new innovative therapies and modalities with the finest functional medicine doctors, practitioners, and like-minded biohackers while living our best life. Enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Health Trip Podcast. Have you ever wished for a private chef to prepare your meals, especially during menopause? I have. Someone who truly understands your unique needs at this stage of life. A chef who tailors meals specifically for you, focusing on gut health, heart health, body composition goals, hair loss, skin health, sleep, stress, and so much more, ensuring that every dish supports your midlife journey. While I love cooking and baking, there are moments when I've imagined how amazing it would be to have someone else handle it all. However, as a health coach, I believe that learning to prepare healthy, nourishing meals for yourself is essential, particularly during midlife. Cooking for yourself allows you to connect with your body and better understand how different foods make you feel. Why do certain foods energize you while others leave you feeling less than optimal? Although treating yourself to a meal out can be enjoyable, there's tremendous value and research in cultivating the ability to create meals that truly support your health and well-being. My guest today is Shefaly Ravula, a board-certified physician assistant whose primary focus is gastroenterology, metabolic health, and culinary medicine. She left her conventional healthcare model to learn and expand her expertise from a more holistic lens, helping her patients achieve better health outcomes. In this episode, we talk about harnessing a love of nourishing food, cooking, and preparing meals during midlife and beyond, even if you previously avoided your kitchen like the plague. For those of you wondering what the science is showing regarding menopausal gut health, how to optimize your body composition when dieting doesn't work, and how to maintain a long-term, joyful nutrition journey for the next 3 and 4 decades, this episode is for you. This is again about thinking about making the behavior change now to set yourself up for your 70s and your 80s and your 90s to be healthy. Short medical disclaimer before we dive in. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice or to make any lifestyle changes to treat any medical condition in yourself or others. Consult your physician for any medical issues that you may be having. And this entire disclaimer also applies to any of my guests on my podcast. So sit back and open your mind, and let's dive into getting into the kitchen and finding joy. Hey, Shefaly, welcome to the Health Trip Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I actually love cooking. I've always loved cooking. I grew up with a mom and my aunt, and we grew up all next door to each other. So I had my cousins next to me. And if I didn't like what my mom was cooking, I would just go down the little path in between our houses and see what my aunt was up to.
Oh,
So from
that's
an
cool.
early age, I really discovered my love of cooking and being creative in the kitchen and eventually having my 5 kids and feeding them. But there are a lot of women who do not think that way. And especially as we're arriving in midlife and going through menopause, we're feeling confused over what to eat, how to cook, how to shop, what's a balanced plate for me, how to find that personalized approach. So I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation for a lot of the listeners.
Yay. I'm excited. I feel like I have a lot of ideas. And I work with a lot of different people on all those spectrums. Never cooked, didn't enjoy cooking, not sure if they enjoy cooking. I mean, it's actually a question on my intake form, like how much joy does it bring you, or how much grief or strain does it bring you? And I'm like you in some ways. I grew up cooking, but I didn't really love it. I was made to do it. Like I was like, it was like you come home from school and have your snack and then go do homework and then you're going to help me cook dinner. And that was what I had to do. And so, it was really one style of cooking, Indian cooking, which I'm very grateful for having had those skills. But I didn't really get into cooking until my first professional job, actually.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you share all of your expertise in this area. But before we dive into that, first, I'd love for you to share with us how you got here. How did you arrive in a more functional, integrative approach coming from a more conventional background?
Yeah, there was really one trigger. And often you hear probably others people on your podcast talk about their own health event that makes them
Yep.
go that way. That wasn't me. Mine was pretty unique. Like I went to there's my pup. I was in a hospital rounding on patients and I got the page that my dad was having a heart attack. And so he's fine now, but what basically he went through a process of having me having a significant dive into cardiometabolic health and nutrition. And that brought into like this whole idea of, wait, you're a vegetarian. I don't understand. And you don't have obesity and other medical conditions. So really that was the main trigger that led me on to this very long 25-year journey. That was 25 years ago of nutrition and then lifestyle medicine and then functional medicine and how all those interplay anyway. And some are the roots of the others. So,
Yeah. Well, we're always grateful to have people come from conventional medicine over to a more holistic lens
yeah.
with your expertise and then expanding on that area of expertise. So, why does nutrition matter anyway in midlife and beyond? I always talk about making the behavior changes now to set us up for successful and strong and vibrant 70s, 80s, and 90s. But why should women in midlife really start to look at what they're eating and make some changes if necessary?
Yeah. I think a lot of midlife women are already driven. They tend to maybe start going to the doctor a little bit more, getting their annual physicals, finding they have high cholesterol. Perhaps
Hmm.
they're having, unwanted belly fat all of a sudden, and they're like, huh, or they're told they're pre-diabetic. So some of that triggers the desire. But if those aren't, is that if that isn't the case, I think in general, the importance is longevity, right? So bone health, heart health, brain health, um, leading an anti-inflammatory sort of lifestyle and diet and nutrition for the reasons that you want to live. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, I don't want to live till 100 and be miserable, right? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that health span that, people like Dr. Peter Attia have coined, and where you're living your best, and then at least in that quote unquote marginal decade you're not miserable and you can bend over to pick up something, or your grandkid, or climb stairs, etc. So you need nutrition, and you probably feel empowered by nutrition to help that piece of your life, your health journey, I think.
Yeah, I always say that if we can create a healthy, strong foundation, everything else we do is going to work that much better. So if you have to take a medication or you're taking a supplement or maybe you're using red light therapy, whatever you're choosing to insert in your lifestyle, it's going to work that much better and perform better for you when you already have this healthy lifestyle, this healthy foundation.
Yeah, 100%. It's all synergistic, right? And I
Yeah.
can't say like, yeah, food is medicine, and nutrients and nutrition's important, but it's also, that's not the only thing. You got to take care of your sleep and your stress and your movement and those things. So yeah, they all are synergistic, I think.
You mentioned the term anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So there might be some of the listeners out there who aren't really familiar with what that means. Maybe they've heard of an anti-inflammatory based diet, but when we're talking about the lifestyle, what are you referring to with that?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I would say um pro-inflammatory foods are going to be what you want to get rid of. So that's leaning to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle more than anything. So there are anti-inflammatory foods. Certainly, you think of antioxidants and polyphenols. Those are like compounds in colorful fruits and vegetables, bioactive, like, foods that actually have these compounds in them that go a long way. You think of superfoods, if you will, like green tea or pomegranate and a wide variety of other things. The components in cruciferous vegetables. So these all do have anti-inflammatory benefit in the body, but I think there's even more lower hanging fruit than where you kind of get rid of or try to reduce the pro-inflammatory foods. So I think that's really what I mean. I'm really big on balance, and I think it's very hard to completely get rid of everything, and midlife women are still some having, maybe families in the home and or young children, older children, taking care of aging parents, perhaps. Like there's a lot we are all taking care of, not only ourselves. So
Right.
it's really hard to say, no, you can't have, seed oils ever, or, no, you should only have, fish oil from these sources. I mean, we just do, we want to do the best we can. I think it's nice I like to just empower people with the knowledge, and like really just try to get at least the fundamentals before, because you can go crazy going down the supplement route and, oh, I got to do this, or I read about red light therapy, like you just mentioned. Like sometimes the foundations need a lot of work too, just like,
Yeah.
you know,
I like that you bring attention to this anti-inflammatory based lifestyle, not excluding everything that you love. Because if we do that, people aren't going to listen to the rest of the podcast
I
episode,
know.
right? They're just, I mean, they might be gone, right?
Yeah.
But as a health coach, I always like to say, what can we add in? Because once you start adding in all of these healthy, nutrition-based foods, you sort of crowd out the ones that don't belong in the equation.
100%. I love that you said that because, um, I had a presentation once where that was the whole idea. Instead of an exclude process here,
Hmm.
it's an include and then work on the exclude. So, I mean, just getting fiber in and protein will likely satiate you so that it doesn't
Hmm.
leave a lot of room for some of that other stuff. That's not everybody, because some people are really prone to cravings and perhaps, uh, other things going on, maybe some gut health stuff. So these are other scenarios, but a lot of people probably will benefit from, good variety of fiber and protein and good quality fats. I mean, just kind of all the basics to feel full and to feel energetic and to feel vibrant, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. There are times where I've been working with a client and all we'll do is make one change at a time. Maybe the change is increasing protein. Maybe the change is increasing fiber. But whatever that change is, they come back a week or two later and they say, I actually didn't want anything else late at night. I didn't have my 9 o'clock p.m. snack like I usually do because I increased, X food and all of a sudden I was feeling different.
Right. Yeah, I know. It is powerful. And I
Yeah.
do like, ideally, I also like one intervention at a time.
Yeah.
Because then you're not throwing a bunch of things and that even means like that could be not just like supplement, but even dietary, or, a new habit like chewing mindfully, perhaps, or eating hygiene. But sometimes people are wanting a really quick turnaround. And then that may be times where I may want to do multiple things at once. But I love that you've had that success. That's great.
Oh, absolutely. And I started doing it for myself too. When I have a new goal in mind, I only do one thing at a time. If you start overloading yourself, it's you're just setting up for most people a disaster, right?
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
start building on one block at a time. Um,
Yeah.
let's dive into key nutritional strategies for midlife women to start finding joy. Let's start talking about the midlife woman who is feeling really overwhelmed. Maybe she is in that sandwich mode where she is still taking care of some kids at home and she's taking care of her elderly mom or dad or both, and she's feeling really overwhelmed and she just has never really enjoyed cooking, but she's now in midlife and she's not feeling great, and perhaps she's starting hormone therapy, perhaps she's not, but she's curious now about what she can do to enhance her nutritional needs.
Yeah. So aside from maybe some other low-hanging fruit like sleep, labs, let's focus like on what you said, the nutrition piece. What can that
Yeah.
woman do in the kitchen? I think one of the best things is that morning meal. And or the first meal, whether, maybe the person is fasting, I don't know. But that first meal, that morning meal, if we could just get a good balanced, breakfast with a good amount of protein, quality fat, fiber, I think that can go a long way because that doesn't also require, a lot of cool culinary techniques and interesting spices and flavors because, dinner you might end up wanting that, or you might want to be thinking about that for who you're taking care of because you may have picky eaters in the family. But for breakfast, often, it's you for yourself. Maybe you're doing stuff for your children separately, like, in advance, and then you have time for yourself to eat. I don't know. The timing could be different, but I think focusing on like a few breakfast ideas that you can rotate through. And maybe also sometimes, because I'm a foodie and it is hard. Like I'm a big foodie. I'm in a cookbook club. I've like was a food writer. I mean, I love really good food. When I travel, it's sometimes all about the restaurants.
Yeah.
But at some point, if we can let go of like how that thought of, "Oh, every meal has to be so amazing," or
Yeah.
think about it, food as being medicine in that way. Like it is a medicinal, prescriptive type of thing that you're feeding your body because it's information. Food is information. Food is joy. Food is vitality. Food is medicine. So not every meal maybe has to be so fantastic or so elaborate. Maybe it's a smoothie, and maybe it's, doesn't you just have to like make yourself think, okay, I'm going to have a smoothie. This is like my prescription for how I half day, like which so can have like a nut butter or maybe a dairy milk or a non-dairy milk, depending on can have like turmeric or ginger. It can have a boiled beet. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really like I've been loving my beet smoothies lately, and I will.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know it sounds like, oh my God, how can you have
No,
a
that sounds interesting. My mom used to put beets in a chocolate cake and didn't tell us for like 10
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah, you can't tell because you're overpowering
Right.
it with some of the other
Yeah.
ingredients. So,
Hmm.
um,
And a smoothie is such a great way to add in protein powder. So this
yes,
is also a great strategy for women to start their day off with a lot of protein who don't want to cook eggs, they don't want to cook a sausage, they don't want to cook anything,
yep,
and they also aren't craving to eat something that
yeah,
heavy, right? So
yeah,
this protein powder, I love that idea because you can get, 30 plus grams of protein in there, double up the scoop. I always say the scoop is what, 15 to 20 grams
yeah,
usually.
yeah,
Double it up and really get a good hit of protein and watch how the next 4 hours turn into a lot of productivity, whether you're at work or whether you're having to take care of things at the house.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And and then of course you can't do that every day. Most people don't. I mean, some people will come to me and be like, yeah, just tell me what to eat, Shefaly. I will eat it. Like I don't care about food. I just need to know what to eat. And in that case, that, maybe the smoothie every day, or the smoothie alternating with the chia pudding or scrambled eggs, turkey sausage, whatever it might be. But I love that you made the point, Jill, that it's like for people that kind of don't feel that hungry, but they know they need something, or they just don't have the time and desire to like, have a messy kitchen or
Mhm.
dishes in the sink. I totally get that.
Yeah, the other reason I love your starting out with a healthy breakfast is because a lot of women work out in the morning, whether they get up early before their day starts or they fit it in after the kids go to school, whatever it is, and they work out without eating. And we know that that is not a great way to work out. Your body needs to have a message that there is available energy in your body to utilize to work out, or else we're just driving that cortisol level really high and causing more crashes down the road. So I really like the first meal, whether you're fasting overnight or you're just someone who prefers to eat in the morning, getting some kind of protein forward breakfast is so important to our workouts as well, especially because we're in midlife. We are going to struggle building that lean muscle mass.
Yes, yes, we're already at a negative there, with muscle protein synthesis really fighting against us as we get older. I can't remember the last person, I think Don Layman, or I can't remember which muscle centric person was talking about this on a podcast, but it is a little dismal because you really stop making it effectively. And so you have to work really hard at making it and then feeding those cells. So, yeah, I mean, to your question initially about midlife women and nutrition, wanting to get in the kitchen, that first breakfast meal is really like, or a getting that protein in via that breakfast smoothie is a great option for non-cooks. Um,
Hmm.
and then I have tips for non-cooks for later in the day and also for cooks.
Oh, all right. So someone who likes to cook in the morning and maybe they're cooking for a family member as well and they're not by themselves. Because this is also a time where midlife women can also be living alone. They could be having gone through a divorce. I have 5 kids and I was in perimenopause and was going through a divorce. And there were times I was by myself in the house and I was like, oh my God, I just used to feed an army and now it's just me for the weekend. And it was a real struggle wrapping my head around because I do love food and I do want all my meals to be really yummy. And that was a struggle for me. So, yeah, tips would be great.
Yeah, so I think for the person that's into cooking or flavor or has the time, condiments are key. Like
Hmm.
condiments are key. Like I just I always want to do like a condiment swap or a sauce swap with people rather than the old-fashioned soup swaps. Do that if you can, like with your neighbors and like trade, like make a batch of 5, of the same vinaigrette or preserved lemon or harira or any international spice blend that kind of is appealing to you. It's a spice blend or a sauce or a vinaigrette that usually last, like if it's a dried herb spice blend, that's going to last for months. If it's a vinaigrette, that'll probably last for several days. And then if it's a different type of sauce, that'll also last for several days, or you can freeze them. So you can just bring them out and, make your scrambled eggs and then toss in that spice blend,
Hmm.
saute all your vegetables, leafy greens, collards, colorful bell peppers, carrots, whatever you've got, and saute them. Do your eggs on the side if you want, and then in those veggies, throw in that little condiment, whether it's something if it's like like a salsa or a sauce, you might want to, saute the vegetables and then add it at the end and stir it up, or you may serve it just on the side as an accompaniment. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of key. There are great cookbooks out there that have so many, inspiration. I'm in Cookbook Club. I mentioned that already. And we had our meeting last night, so it's fresh on my mind. But it's always a great way to get new ideas. Is using food blogs or New York Times recipes or cookbooks. Yeah.
What types of cookbooks or sites do you recommend for women who have not really enjoyed cooking in ever
Hmm.
and are now trying to rekindle or find that relationship in the kitchen again with joy? What do you recommend? Where should they start?
Yeah, I think there are some really good basic cookbooks out there that are not meant to be like, oh, this is how you chop an apple. Um, they're a little bit more like, okay, I want to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or breakfast together in 10 minutes. Um, but they can make it interesting. And then some of them do incorporate like some of those international flavors. So I just off the top of my head, well, the one we did last night is Julia Turshen. She has several cookbooks and she just came out with one. Oh, of course I should remember the name, but it just was released and it's full of charts and tables um where you get the bones of how to put something together, but if you don't have it, there's a chart where you can be like, okay, if I didn't have that, I'm going to put this in there instead.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
love
so
that.
she is I actually met her. She was I was her moderator at a book festival where she was promoting one of her older books. And some of the older books are really great too, but they're all, I would say, a good starting point. Certainly all the Ina Garten ones from
Yep.
Barefoot Contessa can be a good,
Yep.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
easy and basic. Yep.
yeah.
No
Yeah.
fuss.
And then there are older ones, but like Silver Palette and things
Yep.
like that. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of other ones. We have a little freebie on one of our Instagram accounts, the one Chef's Kitchen. And there's a freebie on there on like how to, and it's got a list of a bunch of different cookbooks. Yeah. I
Oh,
can,
that's great. I will put that in the show notes for
okay,
sure.
okay,
Because I
okay.
think that's important, right? Getting a book. I gave cookbooks to all of my kids when they graduated
Oh, that's
college.
cute. That's
Yeah.
cute.
I mean, they grew up watching me cook, but they can all cook like really, really well. I don't, they meal prep and, if my kids can do it, anyone can do it.
Yes, yes.
And they don't, and it's interesting when I watch them because they don't all necessarily love the act of meal prepping and preparing, but they love knowing that on a Tuesday they have lunch and dinner ready to go and they don't have to think about it when they're at work.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic that you've been able to do that. My older one definitely the kids go through phases, right?
Yeah.
They were cooking so much when they were little. They learned how to use a chef's knife at a young age, and then they go through middle school and high school and I'm like, "Wow, did you forget everything I taught you?" And now they're, one's in college and she is cooking most of her meals. I'd say half her meals, not most of them, but I think that's pretty good.
And
Yeah.
that reminds me, if you're in midlife and you're trying to get back into the kitchen and you do have some older kids at home, what a great way to role model what their life is going to look like when they're out of the house. And you can do it together, sit
Yeah.
down and get on the computer, brainstorm what is of interest to you to make and just work together to get it done. And so that's a lot of fun too. So just using these strategies to just get yourself in the kitchen at first, making it really easy, really basic, because if you overwhelm yourself, you're not going to do it again. But it's got to be something that's comfortable and it works for you and it tastes good.
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh. Yeah, I also think even as a inexpensive subscription to, well, it could be like a meal planning deliveries, sorry, meal planning service, if that's helpful to you, where you like get an automatic shopping list and like, you think about what
Hmm.
works for you. Like, do you want that inbox that says, okay, go shop and buy all these things and prep this on this day and this day? Or do you want more creativity? And then that way you might want to subscribe to maybe the New York Times cooking channel and get
Hmm.
but then that requires a little time because you might then say, oh, that's a 5-star recipe. What do the reviews say? And then
Yeah.
you might play around. So it kind of just depends on your personality too.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the meal planning box subscriptions are actually a really good place for some people to start, right? Because you're not having to think of, A to Z. You just
Yeah.
have to think of a few different things in the middle and throw it all together. So that's a great approach. Any other strategies you can think of for women to get back in the kitchen? You know, Maybe one of them, I'm going to offer one. One is really connecting with your why, right? Why is getting in the kitchen important to you in the first place? Like
Mhm.
for you or for me, I also had a dad who was very sick and he ended up passing away, but he lived a very unhealthy life. So for me, early on, I recognized that, how you live your lifestyle is going to determine your lifespan
Mhm.
and your health span. And so for me, my why is I want to just nourish myself. I want to make sure that my body's getting what it needs because I don't want to end up like my dad.
Right.
So, really reconnecting with your why before you even make the decision to get in the kitchen, I think is also really important.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, like just to remind ourselves of your why and like thinking, 20, 30, 40 years ahead, like where do you want to be? And I guess we're not supposed to live in our future. We're supposed to be very present and focused in our present. It's hard not to think about the past or the future for anybody. But if you were thinking about your present day, like what are those symptoms you have? Is your MSQ score, that's the scoring, one of those scoring review of systems that we use where we're kind of scoring how the body feels. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score, right? So like if you have brain fog, if you're tired, if you're like not thinking clearly, if you're not, weight is a big one that a lot of people struggle with. But beyond weight, like I like to think really more about metabolic health because that's where it matters.
Mhm.
No matter what size are, you can have ill metabolic or
Mhm.
poor metabolic health. So maybe thinking about how you feel or thinking about your numbers and helping that be your why too. If you're just kind of like,
Mhm.
I don't know if I really need to focus on this so much. And again, I like how you just pick like a couple things and just pick that maybe for the next few months, even not a whole, not I'm going to do this week and this next week and this next week, but
Yeah.
habit and change take a lot of time.
I really love that you brought up blood work. I'm actually one of those very lean people who is, I always have pre-diabetic numbers and I have the diabetic genes. I've done all of the genetics for myself. So, um, I've done scans of my heart. I've done a lot of work to discover, what is going on, what is my health story, because all of ours are very different. And that
Yeah.
is also another driving factor for me. Well, I know that if I don't take care of myself and eat a certain way for me, and my equation is different than your equation, I could end up with diabetes.
Right. Right.
Right. I have the genes for it. I have the genes for a lot of negative things. So that keeps me in check. Not to say that I don't go out to dinner and enjoy myself, and not to say that I don't eat, you know, certain unhealthy foods. Like, I don't eat dairy, so I don't eat a lot of ice cream or cookies like that. But I'll make myself chocolate chip cookies the way that I'll eat them. It's not something I have all the time, but I'll go to the movie and I will have popcorn once in a while. It's not, like we said earlier, it's not excluding everything, but maybe that 80/20 rule is something that can
Mhm.
work as a strategy for someone trying to find joy back in the kitchen as well.
Yeah, yeah. And then I will say one piece is if you do like being around people and you like and you have a community or you're trying to seek community because community, people, relationships are part of an essence and science of
Hmm.
happiness, right? And it is a big piece in the longevity world and in blue zones and whatnot is who are your people? Who are your relationships? Do you have strong ones? And I think, even in the pandemic, there was that second tier and third tier being discussed. It's not, doesn't have to be your best friend to still be part of your community.
Yeah.
So, maybe if you are that person that's either seeking community or loves it, get those people together in your kitchen. Once a month, maybe do a potluck or, and yes, sometimes you can be like, oh, but that's going to bring the alcohol and then I have to clean up and we have to abandon like some of that. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you have to get rid of alcohol. Like, yes, we all know reducing alcohol is wonderful for your health. So it is a balance, and maybe you are surrounding yourself with peers that think like you or are on your same health journey because it can help you. And actually, several of my patients are friends with each other. Um, and they really support each other in some of their work that they do with me.
I love that strategy. And that is such a great segue into some study I came across. So what you're talking about is creating this sense of community in your home, right? And doing, instead of a book club, it's a cooking club and everybody brings something and maybe there's an overall theme and you're making it fun. And some of you might be great cooks and some of you might be beginner cooks, but what a wonderful way to share in that and bond, right? So I
Yeah.
read this study when I was preparing for this podcast. And so in 2023, it said virtual cooking classes for perimenopausal women increased positive body composition changes, increased their daily fruit and vegetable intake, their fish intake, beans, whole grains, and overall they had positive health outcomes just from taking virtual cooking classes.
That's so cool. I mean, that just tells you like, yeah, that's the power of community or belonging or, I don't see that any different than going to church or going to tennis class. You're with people that have the same interests as you, and so you then pick up on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here in downtown Chicago and there's tons of cooking classes. So you can do in person and I know there's tons of virtual options out there as well. Um,
Yeah,
so
actually, so Tershin, the cookbook club we did last night, that book that we did is based on her um cooking classes that she did virtually through the pandemic.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And I was going to say one more thing on the meal plans. I forgot we have meal plans on our website, and I actually have an anti-inflammatory one that's like a 3-day or a 5-day meal plan that you can try for free for a week.
So when you talk about meal plans, I love that idea. For some people, that might be a great strategy to try a meal plan so that they can see, oh, this is what this is called. This is the type of food I need. This is how it makes me feel. So they can start connecting the dots to what foods make me feel this way. Oh, I slept better, or I wasn't craving sweets after dinner. My focus throughout the day felt better. So I think that's a wonderful way to start finding more joy is just at first, maybe that option is following someone else's meal plan.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think it does depend on your personality, what jives
Yeah.
with you, right? Like, are you okay with like, okay, I want to be told what to do and just tell me what to shop and that I'll do that and I'll test it out for a while and see how I feel, just like what you're describing. Or are you like, oh gosh, I really need a little bit more creativity here or some exciting ingredients. And so you might be on that camp. And there's a happy medium too.
Yeah. I've been on this mindfulness kick all of 2024 and into 2025. First, for my own curiosity of finding my own type of mindfulness practice. And one of the things I had to work on was mindful eating, which you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so tell us, what does mindful eating mean?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm guilty of this too, for sure, especially as an entrepreneur and running my own business. But I think um sitting sitting for your meal, um, in, instead of rushing through your meal would be kind of a big step. So like hopefully we're not at a place where we have to eat in the car. Like maybe we can step away from that as a first step. And then next step would be to step away from your computer while you're eating.
Mhm.
And then the next step would be, and even if those first two steps aren't done, this third one that I'm going to talk about is super easy even before, is just taking a few deep breaths before you eat. Um, and that, because we're talking about the nervous system, right? We're talking about the autonomic nervous system and the division between the parasympathetic, which helps maintain the gut and innervate the gut, and the sympathetic, which is in that fight or flight. So a lot of us are in fight or flight kind of all the time. Um, yeah, and so you have to really bring that other balance in, because we're not meant to be creatures that live in fight or flight all the time. We're meant to have a balance. And so taking that breath work before you eat is one great easy thing. And you could do that as a group or a family. Like, I know it's kind of awkward. I actually I lead retreats. I led a gut health retreat in Morocco last year, and one of my activities for the group, and they laughed at me for this because they didn't know that we were going to do this. We rode camels into into the dunes, the safari in this Moroccan desert. And then we had a picnic lunch, but before I let them eat, I had them uh do exactly what I'm saying, some breath work, and then they couldn't speak throughout the meal.
Mm.
So they were silent throughout the whole meal, which was very awkward because you're with people and you're like, I feel like I'm supposed to talk. And I got some good, yeah, I've done that myself at Kripalu in New York, which is, one of those like a yoga retreat place.
Mhm.
And every meal there, sorry, not every meal, every breakfast there, I think in the large cafeteria of 300, 400 people, is silent. So all you hear as you're eating is silverware and chewing. And it's fantastic. It's an amazing experience. Yeah.
Oh, I could only imagine. And also, you're really feeling the textures of the different foods and the
Yeah.
flavors and even feeling the digestive process start, right? Which is
Yeah.
so huge for midlife women. So many midlife women, we struggle with constipation, loose stools, IBS, maybe IBD. Autoimmune conditions are on the rise during midlife. So we have all these GI issues going on, which is the specialty you were in for many, many years and continue to be in. How important is really finding the joy of nourishing yourself in the kitchen to your gut health?
Yeah, I know. So I think uh, if you're dealing with a chronic gut issue where you've been told oh, I'm sorry about that. You've been told maybe you have IBS, and you're not happy with the conventional route of treatment and you're still suffering, or SIBO is a big one we see here, gas and bloating, poor digestion, acid reflux, all these things. Um, these are kind of states of chronic simmering, issues. And if you're in there, know that there is a very good functional medicine approach to that, that is kind of essential and to kind of it's a foundation to the rest of your body. Um, and so I would say everything pertains with like bringing joy back into the kitchen and joy back into eating foods and eating the foods you want. as long as your gut is fixed and restored. So gut restoration is a big part of what we
Yeah.
do. And for that time period, if you're going through like a protocol with me or something like that, you sometimes won't be able to eat all the things that you wanted to
Yeah.
eat, but you
Yeah,
will
for sure.
get to that point, right? So I hope I
Yeah.
answered your question. I'm not sure if I did.
Yeah. No, what you're saying is it might not be joyful going through a gut protocol to heal your gut if you've had chronic issues for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You can find the gratitude and the joy in the fact that you're able to even be on this journey to heal your gut because the rewards at the end are going to be great, right? Then
Yeah.
you're going to be eating foods without feeling that pain, that
Right.
GI upset, all of these symptoms. Perhaps you have a GI issue and it's related to eczema, psoriasis, hair
Yeah.
loss, joint pain, all of these symptoms that go along for the ride. So, and that's that inflammation. And we talked
Yep.
about this anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So it might not be, all joyful in the beginning, but it will in the end. It shouldn't deter you from doing the work.
That's right. And also, I don't mean to say that all your food's going to taste bad.
No, I know what you're
It's
saying. It's just going to
it's
be
going to be
more
more
limited.
more
Yeah.
prescriptive, more limited, but you can still make it delicious. We just have so much in nature that we can make our food delicious. Just herbs and spices alone and beautiful like olive oils. Like it's, I think can you just imagine how many cookbooks are written all the time? Like there's never no one, there's always a new cool ingredient in the world
Yeah.
that's discovered. So I think that's pretty cool. Like, that you that we have a lot to choose from. So I mean, so and I want to explain like an example that came to my mind when you were repeating or rephrasing what I was saying is like the concept of eating bitter foods, right? So great for digestion, so great for priming our pump, if you will. And I usually have a lot of that's kind of a talk I have with people. We got to get bitter foods back in our diet, and sometimes people need more than just the food, and they may need the tinctures and whatnot,
Hmm.
and a whole protocol. But you can start appreciating those foods that you didn't get used to tasting, maybe because you didn't get exposed to having bitter foods, because in the West, we don't really eat them that much, right? And so that is an example of like how, believe it or not, you might like mindfully appreciate bitter foods once you start realizing that they exist and that you can make them tasty in their own in their own inherent way and then add to them.
So I always read in the media that we want to eat about 30 different plant foods a week, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really help to support that microbial diversity in our gut.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do for myself is at least once or twice a month introduce a new plant-based food into my routine that I haven't tried or I haven't had in a really long time.
Yeah.
And I used to not cook with a lot of bok choy, even though I love bok choy. So I've been rotating bok choy in. I used to love pomegranates when I was a kid and sort of just forgot about them. And I've been enjoying those more now. So I love the idea of bringing in bitters. And you're right. Some people do need to use bitters for digestions, the tinctures before they eat their meal. But what are some bitters that people could start with maybe that are a little more appetizing or useful on their
I
journey?
yeah, arugula, which I feel like is popular now. I mean, I see it as a topping on pizza some places.
Yep.
Um, I mean, my kids like it, so my kids are older now though, but still, I think my younger one liked it even when she was younger. So, although arugula is not, I'm not sure if it's technically, it's a bitter green, yeah. Radicchio is very bitter, so I wouldn't start
Hmm.
there. Artichoke, oh gosh, I'm just blanking. Oh, dandelion. Now dandelion's pretty bitter. Dandelion roots, like the
Hmm.
right, and then dandelion tea is very bitter. But
Hmm.
I invite your readers to just, it's cheap to get dandelion tea. It's accessibility, it could be an issue for sure. Like it may be hard to find, but there are plenty of online shops that you could order it to. But it is cheap and it's, a tea bag. And so I invite you guys to like just try it out and see and make, see how it feels in the mouth. Like you're going to be shocked, you may not like it.
Hmm.
Maybe you have to adulterate a little bit with some nice raw unfiltered local honey. Okay, that's
Hmm.
fine.
Right, right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, see how you do. And I'm blanking on my other long list of, it's not a
So
long list.
I love arugula and radicchio. So, but too much is not great. So when I'm making a big salad, I just put a handful of each in and mix it up with all the other ingredients. So you don't really taste it that much, but it's
Yeah.
there and it's just bringing in, a lot of variety. I love variety. Like I said, we want to get up to 30 plants a week. And that's not easy for a lot of people because either they weren't brought up eating a lot of plant-based foods, a lot of different types of vegetables, or they were brought up eating them and really didn't enjoy them. So
Mhm.
reconnecting with them doesn't sound that appetizing. But
Yeah.
that's a great point. What are some other nutrient-based foods, some good ones for midlife women to sort of connect with again,
Be thinking about,
or
yeah.
for the first time? Yeah.
Um, and I'm going to go back to one other little cool thing for bitters for people that feel like, no, I've done what she's saying. I can't stand
Hmm.
them. Roasting, right? So roasting, because the TAS2 receptor is a gene SNP that we can test for, and those are bitter taste receptors that some people just cannot tolerate bitters. So,
Mm.
and the recommendation is to roast these vegetables and get that sweetness out, and that can help or caramelize them.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever roasted or sautéed radishes. They're
I
amazing.
have
Okay,
really good with
right?
olive oil and salt and pepper. I love
Yeah,
it.
love it too. Really
Hmm.
good. Okay, your question was other nutrients. Okay,
Yeah.
calcium,
Yep.
fiber. Fiber, I think maybe we've covered, and it's a
Yeah.
really broad topic. But let's talk about just calcium. Like I think, I think, don't quote me on this, but I did um my understanding is bone formation really slows down and ends in your early 20s for
Yeah.
females,
Hmm.
right? Okay, thank you. And so you're basically left with the bone that you have, and and then you hit menopause and you lose your estrogen. And so, and then possibly testosterone. And so you're really hammered with a lot of things going on perimenopausally that really affect your bone. And so you do have to work harder at um, maintaining your calcium intake, absorbing your calcium. These are all complicated relationships. It's not just about calcium.
Right.
The body is amazing, right? So the hormesis that our bodies have and just sort of that innate chemistry. Oh, my calcium's high, my PTH goes, everything is in balance and your body does a really good job of that. So I don't mean to just say calcium's the only thing that happens to bone health. Please don't take that, but it is a
Right.
nutrient to think about.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, I had osteopenia 3 years ago, and this past year I was diagnosed with osteoporosis. I work out with heavy weights for the last 40 years of my life. I get sleep. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I do all the things. I eat a lot of protein. I am on menopause hormone therapy, right? So I still have osteoporosis. It's genetic. My mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother all had it. I also don't eat dairy because it
Mm,
upsets my stomach.
yeah.
I'm just very intolerant to it. So I have had to be really creative and supplement with calcium to make sure that I can continue to protect my bones, or else I'm going to be in big trouble.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is a really tough scenario to be in when you are midlife and you can't do dairy,
Hmm.
your calcium, you will have to work really hard at it. You have to be very creative. So collard greens, I mean, not a lot of things have a good dose. So, there's a mineral water called Gerald Steiner and some other those imported ones. I mean, those have an extra calcium. Jarlsberg cheese has more calcium than other cheeses. Again, that's dairy.
Yeah.
Toast, good unprocessed whole soy, like actual tofu will, have protein and calcium,
Hmm.
edamame, but you have to work at it, like you said, and you most likely would have to supplement. Like, I agree with you.
There's actually a link where you can, I'll put it in the show notes because I'm forgetting the name of it, but I give it to my clients. It's a link to a series of questions to determine how much calcium you actually are eating every day. So it
Oh,
can really
nice.
assess. So if I'm working with a client who, for some reason, has to go dairy free, we always do that because we're going to have to figure out where we're going to bring it from. And
Yeah.
there might be supplementation to bring along with it. So, yeah, calcium is huge for midlife women.
Yeah.
Any
And,
others you can
and
think of?
other minerals, like, if you look at some of those bone supplements out there, they do have things like boron and strontium and
Yeah.
things like that. But, we would hope to get a food there. I think there's a lot of osteoporosis and osteopenia have a lot of different inputs, and you have mentioned many of them, like menopausal replacement therapy and weightlifting and calcium intake, but there are some missing links out there, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we end, any further nutrients you can think of for midlife women that we need to
Oh,
weave in?
I always okay. This is not a nutrient per se, but we have to think about heart health for women.
Hmm.
And like I know we're women, so we think about breast cancer and we think about maybe belly fat and we think about menopause and we're worried about our brain fog and we're worried maybe about thyroiditis, and all of those matter and are very important. And then maybe that may be the one thing that you have. But don't forget that the leading cause of death in men and women, both worldwide, is heart disease. And it's like the top. So, when we're talking about why would we do this in midlife, like always keep that, what's your why? What's your why? Like, I know I have a personal story to this because of I got into this because of my
Right.
heart attack, but it truly is statistically something we all need to be paying attention to. So, in terms of nutrients and foods, many, many things, but
Well, you're talking about heart health, so that tells me that points to the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet, right? The Mediterranean diet we know is the most well-studied diet, around, and it's easy. It's a
mhm,
very easy diet to follow. And I
yeah,
also don't like the word diet, right? It's just a
yeah,
lifestyle. The
yeah,
Mediterranean nutrition lifestyle is very, very easy to follow. It's easy to follow and make in your home, even as a beginner, even as someone who does not enjoy cooking yet. And it's also easy to follow in restaurants, like on vacation, right? So it's lots of fish, lots of greens, lots of fruits and vegetables,
yeah.
olive oil, olives. Um, so lots of amazing food. There's no boredom in the Mediterranean diet in my book.
Yeah. And it qualifies and can equate to anything that means anti-inflammatory. Because sometimes I get questions like, what does anti-inflammatory mean? Those can be interchangeable because
Hmm.
that is what Mediterranean food is. And like you said, that's the most proven. Um, and yeah, so I think you nailed it with that. Like if that's something like we're not focusing on very specific nutrients or minerals or
Right.
vitamins in there, but it is a good catch-all because it has really great heart healthy fats in there. It's low,
Hmm.
it kind of has that exclude thing that we're talking about. Like
Hmm.
include these, and that will hopefully, like, it also excludes,
Yeah.
processed and things like that. Yeah.
A lot of people think of the Mediterranean diet as just fish as part of the protein, but there's a lot of modified
Mhm.
Mediterranean plans out there, and you can include lean beef, lean poultry, all the lean lamb, all the lean animal-based proteins that you want can go into that Mediterranean diet
Got
or
it.
nutrition
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah. And grains, you can have grains in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of golden nuggets for the listeners to walk away with in terms of really optimizing their joy in the kitchen. And hopefully, we're inspiring some women to get back in there slowly but surely and practice some mindfulness in there and plan. Anything else that you would like to leave the listeners with?
I don't know. I love seeing people more in the kitchen. I think it is maybe an antidote to what is at play in our society where like I said, I'm a foodie, so naturally then you want to go to the newest cool restaurant, but that can add up, and not only in cost but in what what the price of that is doing to your body. Whether it's the nicest,
Yeah.
fanciest restaurant, they are not using, you know, high quality, unfiltered, beautifully sourced olive oil to cook all their meals, or they're not using, the best sourced food. So still, even if you're at the nicest restaurants, you're best served for your health in your own kitchen.
Absolutely. So if you can eat in your own kitchen, making your food 80% of the time, following that 80-20 rule, you are going to be much better off in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
thank you so much again. I will put some
Thank
links
you.
in the show notes and yeah, hopefully we've inspired a new movement.
Maybe. I'm glad we're yes, so thankful for you for doing this and having a podcast to share your message with, and that I'm fortunate to be part of that. So thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Midlife does not have to be a whole negative experience. There's a lot of amazing positive things on the other side of the coin. We just have to use our mindset and flip it and just be open-minded to different behaviors.
Yeah, wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning
Thank
in.
you.
Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Lifestyle changes can be hard and overwhelming to make. By building your support team of functional medicine doctors, therapists, and health coaches, you can reach your optimal health goals. Be sure to check out my other podcasts. Until we meet again, stay healthy.